Hey y'all, happy Monday. I hope you all had a good, relaxing, safe break. So we are actually going to get into our next um, dynasty that we are going to look at. And we're actually going to be here or talking about this dynasty pretty much the rest of this week and into next week. You guys are going to be doing a sort of a research project with this dynasty starting tomorrow. And I'll post like the details, like directions and all that stuff for you all tomorrow and explain what all you're doing with it and that kind of thing. So just be on the lookout for that starting tomorrow. Um, so for today, before we get any further, you should have seen on the module there's a page that says notes. If you will download that, that will be the grapes notes that we're going to fill out today. You'll eventually turn those in. So if you need to pause this video here to go ahead and do that, that'd be great. And then we'll get started with it here in a second. So with the new dynasty we're going to be looking at is known as the Han Dynasty. And so they came around they started from 202 BC to 220 CE. So roughly 400 years or so. If you'll notice too, we go from BC to CE. So they went through Jesus' birth and past it. And it was founded by a man by the name of Liu Bang. If you remember when we did the Qin Dynasty paper in class a week or two ago, Liu Bang was mentioned in one of the documents. And he's the guy who overthrew the Qin and brought in the Han Dynasty. They were known for their royal conflicts, promotion of Confucianism, and their ingenuity, meaning their inventions, their technologies, that kind of thing. The dynasty itself lasted for roughly 400 years, but there was a brief period where it was divided by a rebellion. And so technically, there are two Han dynasties, the Eastern and Western Han. But for our purposes, we're just going to call them all the Han dynasty. But just know that there are technically two Han dynasties, the Eastern and the Western. So on your grapes notes, if you will, we're going to start with geography. And the Han Dynasty was founded along the Wei River, which you can kind of see right here. And the capital was Chang'an. As far as land area goes, the Han Dynasty would be the largest Chinese dynasty up to this point. And it stretched into portions of modern-day North and South Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, those areas. And then as far west as like portions of Central Asia even. And this expansion allowed them a lot of opportunities, if you will, for expanded trade, military conflicts. They ran into a lot of conflict with the Mongol tribes and like the Central Asian tribes out here. So this forced them to do a couple of things. Forced them to negotiate treaties with these different groups, as well as enhance and add on to portions of the Great Wall that we've been talking about. And so you can kind of see the black outline is like the modern border of China, and then the red obviously is like areas under the Han Dynasty control. And so they managed to occupy a lot of what is today China. As far as religion goes, the Han Dynasty is known for being very, very open to different religions. And this is different from the Qin Dynasty, if you remember, because the Qin often attacked people of different religions that the government didn't support. The Han Dynasty didn't really care. Their kind of thought was, as long as you don't cause any problems and you pay your taxes, they'll let you practice whatever religion you choose. Their big thing was Confucianism, the ideas and teachings behind it, as well as allowing Buddhism and another religion known as Taoism to become important religions for the ordinary person. If you remember when we were in India, I said that Buddhism kind of left India and moved to China. So that happened during this Han Dynasty period. As far as achievements go, they actually have quite a few. The government developed a system of ensuring that qualified people worked within the government. If you've noticed, a lot of the Chinese dynasties ran into problems where, whether it was emperors or other noble people, got positions of power they weren't qualified for. And so that would eventually lead to the defeat of some of these dynasties, is because the people in charge were not qualified to be in those positions. They didn't have the right training, they had the right background. The Han Dynasty recognized this, and they came up with an idea known as the civil service exam. And what that did was it ensured that people who got government jobs were actually qualified for this. And a lot of it was based on merit, which basically means they gave you a job based on your qualifications, not who you knew or like how much money you had, which is different from other Chinese dynasties we've talked about, where a lot of it was who you knew, how you knew them, or who you could bribe, basically. The Han Dynasty wasn't like that. You had to be qualified to obtain a government job. And they were also big on art, architecture, and writing as well. So like other dynasties, they were big on different architecture, different art styles. And they also invented the use of what we would consider paper. Not quite the same as what we use, but a very similar form of paper. And as far as military goes, they also invented the idea of a crossbow and used it as a weapon for the first time. Politics, we kind of already talked about the civil service exam. The government also made Confucianism the official government philosophy, and they adopted his teachings as official government policy. They appointed people in both the military and the government based on merit, which is again based on your qualifications, not who you knew. And they still maintain that feudal system we talked about under, I think it was the Zhou Dynasty, where the king gave land to nobles who then ran that land. That system is still in play here. Now, this is the one where they're really known for. They, as part of their expansion out west, they developed portions of what would become known as the Silk Road. Some of you may have heard this before. For some of you, this is new. What the Silk Road is it's not just one road. It's a series of roads that connected China essentially with places further west, meaning Europe and the Roman Empire largely. This wasn't one single road. This was a series of roads and trading stops along the way. And the Chinese, since they expanded west, as you remember on that map, were able to administer and offer protection for a good portion of this Silk Road. And it allowed them to trade with places as far away as Rome. And despite being named the Silk Road, silk wasn't the only thing that was traded on this road or on this trade route. Obviously, the big one is silk. That's what China, the Han Dynasty, is known for, is their silk production, their quality silk. It was highly sought after in Europe, in the Roman Empire. They also traded perfumes, different animal skins, weapons, armor. And the Silk Road was also a very, very big network for the slave trade as well. Keep in mind that slavery to people in this time period wasn't anything unusual, wasn't frowned upon by society at large. Slavery was just a typical part of life, and the Silk Road was a huge avenue for the slave trade. And as far as their society goes, we already talked about the civil service exam and all that stuff, but we also need to remember that they still developed, or they developed and maintained the system, the social class system under the previous dynasty, where the power rests with the kings and the nobles, the gentries, so on. So as far as society goes, they still practiced or maintained this social power that we talked about on top of the civil service exam. So this ranking system, if you want to call it that, isn't set in stone. It's possible you could move up based on your job qualifications, that kind of thing. But this was the general structure of how they managed society as far as power goes. Your kings, the king, the emperor, then the nobles, and so on. And so that is actually all I have for you all today. So for your assignment, I can pull it up here, maybe. You'll just turn in your Dynasty notes. You'll download them on the first page, and then you will submit them on this page here. You just need to take a screenshot of it or a picture of it. That's all you need to do. And just make sure you have all the boxes filled in when you do that. And then tomorrow, I'll explain what this research project is going to look like and what all you need to do and that kind of thing. So if you guys have any questions about today, let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a good rest of the day, and I will see you all tomorrow.